Okay, my central air I just installed is already broke down on me. I came by here yesterday morning to check on the system. I was actually getting ready to move into the house and I found the system was froze up and the blower wasn't running. So I got the blower out and I actually have a multimeter that's capable of checking capacitors. I tested this capacitor and found that this capacitor had shit the bed. And when the capacitor went, it took the blower motor out with it. This blower motor sat there and just labored and labored and labored until it burned itself out. I just got back from the supply house and got me a new motor, a universal motor, because money's tight. So and get this installed and hopefully we'll be back in business. Although I wanted to replace that noisy condenser motor while I was at it, but because my little 2-ton Train XB1000 is a special needs unit, it has a special, unique motor that the supply house was only able to quote me an OEM for, and it was going to be over $200. So I might not get to replace that yet. I wanted to just go ahead and, since I had to replace this motor, just go ahead and replace them both and get it out of the way. Because, you know, if this motor just went, the condenser motor is probably not far behind. But sometimes you can only do what you can afford. I'll get this blower swapped, and it just has bare wires on it, and they're thin little fuckers too, so I have to deal with that. And this is a 3-speed. The original was a 4-speed, but that's okay because only 2 of the speeds are needed. We'll get to it. Well, so far so good. That new bracket fit perfectly fine. I just took these rubber bushings off the new motor and just reused the original rubber bushings that go into this original train bracket. It fit perfectly, which, I mean, I figured it would. It is a 48 frame motor. Now I just got to get it in there and hope I don't have to cut the shaft or anything. Okay, I got the motor mounted in the housing along with the new capacitor already plugged in, and I got the blower wheel centered in the cabinet. It's important that you get it in there, centered in there properly and balanced, because you don't want it scraping along the sides of the housing. And I also configured the reversing wires. You gotta determine what direction they're supposed to go. You got this arrow here that tells you the rotation, tells you the blade is supposed to spin this way. Now, looking at the front of the motor, this is the front of the motor, that's clockwise. So, you look at the piece of paper that comes with the motor that tells you how to configure the reversing wires, and for clockwise we cross the colors. We got yellow and orange. You match the colors for counterclockwise, cross the colors for clockwise, at least on this motor. Now the last thing to do is to deal with these wires. On this motor it does not come with the spade connectors. I don't understand why. Most applications you would need those. It does come with them for the capacitor, but for the electrical connections to the circuit board, you just get bare ends. So what I'm going to do is cut the wires off the old motor and splice them on here using my usual technique of solder and friction tape. Okay, so that's all done now. This blower wheel unit is ready to go back in. I took my reversing wires and bundled them up with the capacitor wires just to kind of make sure they're not hanging loose and won't get sucked into the fan. That shaft does stick out just a little bit, but there's plenty of clearance, so I'm not worried about it. All it's left to do is to get this put back in the furnace and see if it works now. Okay, there it is back in place with the circuit board put back in. You can see we do have plenty of room for that shaft. We got white for neutral on the neutral section. Red is the low speed. We put that in park. Blue is medium. We put that on heat. Black is high. We put that on cold. Now, turn off this light. Plug it in. And try her out. Sounds like it started up. Do we have our airflow back? I don't feel shit coming out. Alright, let me shut this off and figure out why I don't feel any airflow coming out of anywhere. I don't even feel it coming out up here. I think I may have misinterpreted the setting the direction. That may be turning backwards. Yep, that was exactly what was it. I watched the blower spin down and it was turning backwards. But that's why you check these things before putting it all back together. So I had to reach my fat ass hands through this tight little space to reach in and grab them reversing wires and unplug them and swap them back to match colors. So we'll try this again. I think I hear it blowing now. Oh, yep, I feel it. Yep. Feels just like it did before. Do we have it in here? Yes, we do. Alright, so we can now put those front covers back on and then go put the outdoor unit back together. There's a couple of little minor differences here between this new motor and the old motor. So this old motor was a 1080 RPM, 1/5 horsepower. The new motor is a 1075 RPM, 1/4 horsepower. So slightly more powerful, but 5 RPM less. But I don't think that 5 RPM difference is going to make any real difference. I mean, it feels just the same as it did before. So this video should hopefully be useful to anybody needing to replace the blower motor on a Train XB80 furnace. Okay, so I managed to find a replacement motor for the outdoor condenser unit. And I also got a new dual run cap because this motor is not compatible with my existing run cap, because this motor calls for a 5 microfarad cap and my original dual run is a 35.4. So I got a 35.5 here. But Johnstone Supply, that's where I got this motor, Johnstone Supply, they insisted that I needed this capacitor. They said, oh, that motor, you gotta have the capacitor. And I stood there and argued with them and told them, no, I don't need this capacitor, because on a universal motor, usually you have 4 wires. You have your run, common, and 2 capacitor wires. And what a lot of guys will do is they'll get this stupid little 5 microfarad, and they'll hook up both wires because they think they need both capacitor wires, and they'll just leave that stupid capacitor hanging loose in the unit or just laying in the electrical compartment, either inside the box or wrapped up in tape or some stupid shit like that. But here's the thing. On a universal motor, you don't need all 4 wires. You'll usually have your black run, red, white common, a brown with a white stripe, and a brown. Well, the brown with the white stripe just hooks into the common. You can just cut that brown with a white stripe off and just hook the brown wire into your dual run and hook it back up as a 3 wire. Well, I get this motor home, I unbox it, and it's not even a 4 wire. This is a 3 wire universal motor. So I did not need this at all. I couldn't use it if I wanted to. So I'm definitely going to be going back to Johnstone and getting a refund on that unnecessary 5 microfarad capacitor. And this is a universal motor. The reason I had trouble getting this motor is because the first supply house I went to is Cardinal Supplies in Jonesboro. The only motor they could find me was a OEM motor, and it was going to be over $200. This thing is going to be around $225, something like that. And Johnstone had this one for about $100 cheaper. And what was weird about it, well, the reason why it was so special is because this is a 1625 RPM motor. And most universal motors only go up to 1075. But they had this one in a universal for about $100 less than the OEM at Cardinal Supplies. So I got the top of my unit over there. I'm going to start swapping this. There is a bit of an issue. This motor in my unit needs to be turned downwards. Well, the studs are sticking out there. So I'm going to have to see if I can flip those. If not, they've got these threaded holes up here. And they've got these bolts that you can use that comes with. So hopefully I'll be able to get this mounted. Okay, so what's really cool about this motor, this is a multi-fit design, and these little bolts that were in the package are actually little studs. The damn fucking camera will ever focus on them. And they screw into these threaded holes on the motor in the appropriate mounting location, and then you just tighten them down and it gives you the studs. So mounting is actually going to be no problem, and they give you new nuts for them. Okay, I got the condenser fan motor in place. I got the blade put on it. This blade was hell. You can see it's discolored from where I was heating it with the MAP gas torch trying to get it off the old motor. It ended up being a lot of work. I mean, that's been the hardest part of this whole thing, was getting it off the old motor. But I finally got the blade off the old motor, got it put on the new motor. The new motor, just like the blower motor, didn't have the ends on it, so I used my usual solder and friction tape. There's the torch I used, solder and friction tape, to splice the ends from the old one. My new capacitor is tall and skinny versus the old one, which is short and fat. So I fattened it up with electrical tape. But of course I used the cheap vinyl electrical tape for that. I didn't use the friction tape. The friction tape is too expensive. And so that should be it. I should be able to take this all out there now and get it all installed. Okay, I got the top just kind of set here. I need to determine what direction the blades are turning, make sure they're going in the right direction. Then once I've verified that, I need to address these reversing wires, and then we'll be ready to put it all back together. Well, it turns out it's already correct as it is, and it's a lot quieter, so it's not too bad out of balance. I straightened the blades out as best as I could with my hands, so cut it back off, take that back in, and deal with those reversing wires. Okay, so now that we know we need the colors matched, I've pulled the wires back out through the grill, and now I'll cut this stupid connector off. I'll solder the wires together, tape them up, and stick them in the conduit here. Well, there they are soldered. There they are friction taped, and now we'll shove them up inside the conduit, which is looking like I'm going to need both hands for, but you get the idea. I shove them up in the conduit goes all the way up to the motor, makes for a nice clean OEM looking installation. Alright, and there it is. That's our finished product. All the wires are stuffed inside the conduit. Nice, clean looking installation. No wires poking out through the grill. No wires zip tied to the grill or hanging down where they could get hit by the fan. A lot of guys, when they use universal motors, they'll either zip tie the wires to the grill, or they'll leave them poking out like I had them during the test fit, and they'll just leave them that way permanently. And the problem with that is that stupid little connector, wherever I lost it to, here, this can deteriorate in the sun and leave bare wires exposed. The sunlight can also rot away zip ties and cause the wires to fall down into the fan. So it's best to do it like that. Well, there it is, finally all done. New condenser motor in it. Sounds a lot better. I no longer need that stupid brick sitting on it to keep it from waking up the neighbors. I actually managed to balance the blades back out by hand, so I didn't need to buy a new blade. And look at that. Nice, clean installation. It almost looks like an OEM motor, except for that big blue sticker and the fact that it looks different than the motor that was OEM for this unit. But hopefully it'll be cooling real soon. Alright, we're back in business. It's cooling again. We got good strong airflow again, and it is blowing cold. So I just hope that's it. I hope we're going to be good for a while. Now, because I used universal motors, I do expect them to fail within the next 5 years. That's pretty much what you get with universal motors, but I didn't have the money for OEM, so sometimes you just got to do what you can afford. And this is sort of a continuation of my installation video where I said I was hoping it would give insight to any other homeowners that were thinking about doing their own DIY HVAC installation. Well, this video goes to show, if you're going to buy old used equipment off Craigslist, don't be surprised if it breaks down like a couple days after you install it. Even if it is a train, Although I will say it did pretty good for being 20 years old and just now having the OEM parts break on it. And now all that's left to do is clean up the fucking mess. I just got done the other night cleaning up all the mess I made during the installation of the system. And then I came in here and made another big fucking mess. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching.